Well, we've been talking about family. Caleb started a series last week, The People You Love to Hate. So we're looking at family, and family is God's idea. God designed family, and he actually made family to be the place that you and I were first supposed to experience like safety and love and grace and forgiveness and growth and faith. And I hope that's the case in your family. But today, we're going to look at a pretty tough issue, the issue of divorce. Now, first, don't you hate talking about tough issues, right? Like, don't you hate it when life just gets more and more difficult? Like, you can probably remember a little bit about when you were like little, like diapers, little, right? Like Ma and Pa did everything. They like brushed your teeth for you once you got teeth, right? They fed you. They often made like choo-choo sounds as they would feed you the food, right? Like they would wipe your bottom for you. How great is that? Right, like you could be shopping with mom in Vaughn's, right, doing a little grocery shopping, and you need to go to the bathroom. And so what do? You don't need a bathroom. You just drop it right there in your diaper, right? Because you're like, it's not my problem. It's mom's problem, right? But then you start getting a little older, right? And then you start having to feed yourself and brush your own teeth and clean yourself and take baths, right? Which some of you started doing a couple years ago, and it's still crazy, right? Oh, I'm just kidding. But like, if only life stayed that simple, where this loving adult did everything for you. Divorce is tough, and it's complex because marriage is complex. I've got a few pictures. My wife and I have been married a little over 21 years. This is our wedding day. Me just, kissing her, because doesn't that make a great picture? It might have also been the last time I was fully clean shaved on my face. Looks great, my wife. She looks the same. I've changed a little. We dated all the way back in high school. We dated like 6.5 years before we got married. I think there's went to a lot of proms and homecomings together. And then this next picture was just this last year, right before 21 years. You get half of my head, which is probably best. You're not blinded by the forehead hitting the light. Let's see if I can get the projector to hit my forehead and then blind some of you. It's great. And I have really greasy skin, so it shines even more because I'm shiny. Weddings are a big to-do, right? Like marriage is a big deal. Marriage is complex. And then weddings, this big party and celebration of the marriage, it's a big deal. Like there are entire jobs that are surrounded by the wedding. Right? There are wedding planners, photographers. There are florists, fellas. Those are people that like do flowers, right? Florists. There are entire Instagram profiles not given to weddings. I mean, there's those. But there's entire profiles on helping ladies pick out the dress, right? And I think that all of this is because that as a culture, we understand on some level that a marriage, a wedding, is a big deal because marriages are at least supposed to be a big deal. It's supposed to last until death do us part. That's the idea. That's the goal. But so many in our culture, and you've probably already feeling this on the dating level, like so many people in our culture, movies and music and people that are older than us that talk about it, it's all about finding the right person. Right? As if it's like all about crossing your fingers and destiny will bring you together and there's some kind of magical force that just, and that's how it works. But the work isn't at all in finding the right person. The work is in becoming the right person for a lot of reasons. And one of those would be for marriage someday or that ultimate relationship. Because every divorced couple or person has stood up on some kind of platform before their peers, before their parents, in front of a preacher, in front of God. And they had looked into the eyes of their one and only, right? Their soulmate. Every divorced person has done that at some point. But for me, here's where divorce hits home, where it gets personal. My wife, Amy, who you saw pictures of, her parents divorced when she was in 4th grade. And she lived with her dad, which was somewhat untraditional, and she would go to her mom's every other weekend. And while her mom and dad are both phenomenal people, and they worked hard within that divorce, it's more than 30 years later, and my wife still has some of the consequences of the choices of her mom and her dad. That's personal thing number one. Personal thing number two, I've been a youth pastor working with people your age for over 22 years. And I have watched all kinds, and when I say all kinds, I mean all kinds of different students at different ages. I've had students that were younger than probably the youngest person in this room whose parents got a divorce when they were young adults. And I mean, there's really no way of like comparing like, well, it's a lot easier if your parents get divorced at this age, or I've watched how it like is traumatic at any age. So I've seen the heartbreak in the lives of kids, and that's personal to me. But you and I don't have to wonder how God feels about divorce. I can tell you how I feel, or you can talk about how you feel based on your own experience of your parents. But we don't have to wonder how God feels. In the Old Testament, in Malachi chapter 2, God says, I hate divorce. And the Bible only allows, I'm doing quotation marks, the Bible only allows for divorce for two reasons. Adultery, which means one of the people or both had an affair, or abandonment. One of them just leaves. But the Bible never says if one of those happens, you have to get a divorce. It's not necessary. The divorce is still a choice, and there are still consequences, even if it's allowed. Regardless of the reasons for the divorce, God hates divorce because he values marriage and family so much. So what I want to do, I want to give you a little bit of a visual illustration. I'm going to have Christina and Damien come up. These are my friends, Christina and Damien. As they're on their way up, I also need 2 student volunteers. Can I get one? You raise your hand first. Come on, sweetie. Yep. And let me get a guy. Are there any guys that want to volunteer? Any fellas? All right, the one standing up. Come on. How do I say your name again?
Erilyn.
Sorry. Erilyn, what's your name?
Dad.
Dad? All right, you guys are going to stand right here. Christina, Damien, come in the middle. You guys are over here because you don't exist yet. Okay, I'm sorry. Don't take it personally. You just don't exist yet. All right, this is Damien and Christina. They're actually engaged to be married. Yes, they're going to be married somewhat soon. They found a really, really super duper cool pastor to officiate their wedding. So that's exciting. All right, so they've been dating for a while. They're now engaged, and so this kind of represents that. Okay? But here's what I'm asking you to do, and you won't have any trouble doing this. This will be good fun. Now, this isn't official, okay? This is all an illustration. But now, we're going to illustrate you being married. I just want you to hug. Can you just give us a hug? Oh. Now, what this represents, you can hold the hug for just a second. Just don't, kill her neck. This represents like they're connected, right? Like that's what God asks marriage to be, that the two become one. Like this is like the same heart, the same mind. They're making choices together. They're equal, right? And then, okay, and you guys can relax. You two are going to come over, okay? How old are you?
11.
How old are you?
11.
When were you born?
December 17th.
When you were born?
February 1st.
February. What does that mean? That means that you're older. Is that right? No,
he's
it is the same year. We're gonna say that you're older, okay? Because you said that was good. So you come along first. Woo, that was a boy. Now that was a girl. You're gonna come over here. Now, can you all 4 put your arms around each other, just like an arm? This is showing family, all right? God illustrates family. Now, if you'll hold that for just a minute, my mom has been a psychiatric nurse for over 40 years. So she's been, studying psychology and psychiatrics and all of this. She said that in the 70s, in the late 60s and 70s, they would tell, like psychology, professionals would tell parents that the most important thing for their child's self-esteem was the child to hear mom and dad telling the child, I love you. Your dad and I love you. I love you. Hold that in your back pocket for a minute. We have a really sad moment coming up. Divorce, okay? Would you two come over here? You two over here. You can just right here at the end of the carpet, okay? So this is a picture of divorce. Now, the kids, obviously, now this is just a visual illustration, but some of you live this in a very real way. What happens is, Christina's going to stay alone because both kids are going to be with dad, right? And I'm not even going to bring in the whole step thing. We could bring like another, adult, but some of you live that, right? But then you two, it's time to go to mom's, right? You got to go to mom's. Oh, hold on, you forgot. You forgot to pack your stuff, right? You left stuff at dad. Okay, so come on back, right? And no, you forgot what sport do you play? Do you play any sports? You forgot your soccer cleats. There's no time. We're going to have to ask, right? There's all these different things, back and forth, back and forth. I want you guys to come back together. Damien and Christina in the middle, each student on the side, arms around each other, make a family again. I'm going to talk about my mom for one last time. My mom said that sometime in the 80s, psychology began to teach that one of the most important things for a child to know for their self-esteem was the most important wasn't that that the child hears dad say, I love you, or the kid. Now, that's super important. But they started saying, you know what's most important? Is that the kids hear and see that mom and dad love each other. That is like this glue that's supposed to be there. And when it's pulled apart, it is actually traumatic for the child. Okay, I want you to give a hand for my volunteers. Thank you all very much. You can sit down. Thank you. Careful off the stage. God hates divorce. He hates it because even when he allows it, it always causes pain. Always. Divorce, at the end of the day, it's a lot of different things, a lot of different reasons. There's a lot of things that surround it. It's complex. But at the end of the day, on some level, two grown-ups make a decision that their marriage is not worth fighting for. And what often happens in the life of a child from a divorce is that the child begins to question, maybe in their brain or maybe just in their heart, like maybe my family's not really worth fighting for. So what I want to do for the rest of our time is I want to give you some truths that hopefully, I hope, will come alongside of you and help in navigating and dealing with potentially if your parents are divorced, if they're going through one, or possibly if your friend is going through that some truths that you might be able to help with your friend. And I would say once we get to number 2 on, all of these are truths that anybody could use in their life in dealing with any kind of hardship or trauma or difficulty. So truth number 1 is this, and I know you know this, but I want you to stay with me for a minute, all right? Divorce is never the child's fault. It's never the fault of the child. Now, even though if you're from a divorced family, you've been told that a lot. You've been told that by both of your parents. You've been told that by aunts and uncles and grandparents and teachers. But it is so common, including in my wife's life in the past. It is so common for a child of divorce to feel like it's their fault, to blame themselves, to think that if I was just better or different, my parents would have stayed together. And part of that is because often what the child sees is that mom and dad arguing about who? The children. The child's education and their friends and the child's relationships and finances because of the children. And so it's easy to understand that a kid would start thinking, man, it's my fault because I'm the one they're arguing about all the time. But listen to me. Parents are supposed to be two grown-ups that are already, if you remember Christina and Damien, before the kids came into the picture, they were supposed to already be a secure, safe, grounded, loving family before a child ever entered into the picture. If yours weren't, that's not your fault. Parents are the adults. A kid doesn't make the marriage, nor can they break it. Even if you were the most out of control, disobedient child ever, you're not responsible for the marriage, and you're not responsible for the divorce. That's just true. Second truth. Open up, don't shut down. This is super important. And this is for any kind of trauma and hardship. Children of divorce often feel abandoned. I mean, the two most important adults in their life have separated. And even psychology has said, it is so foundationally important for a child to, know that their parent loves them, but to know that mom and dad love each other. And I know for quite a few of you, you might not have known a childhood where your mom and dad were even together. And so that's probably hard for some of you to even have a concept of. So some kids shut down when it comes to their parents' divorce at whatever level, like if it's been years ago, or if it was recently, if they're going through it right now, or you feel like you can see the writing on the wall that mom and dad are going to split up at some point. Listen, you need to share. Your parents need to know how you feel. A trusted, wise adult, it would probably help you if they knew how you felt. A good, trusted friend to share with them. But you might think like, look, talking isn't going to solve anything. Now, I know what you mean. I think what you mean is talking about how you feel isn't going to bring mom and dad back together. So you're like, what's the point? And that's where some of that stuff comes from. Like, man, if the marriage wasn't worth fighting for, maybe my family's not worth fighting for. Maybe I'm not worth fighting for. Maybe I'm stupid for feeling this way and that it shouldn't be that dramatic. I mean, look how many people get divorced and how many other kids are going through it. I shouldn't feel so. And do you see what happens? You're not too young to get this. The more you begin to shut down, you push down these feelings even deeper. And you already, listen to me, at your age, you already have enough temptation and enough voices telling you that you need to act a certain way, even though that's not really how you feel. The more you push it down, the heavier the burden actually gets, because the more you push it down, it doesn't mean it goes away. And the more you fake like nothing's wrong, that doesn't mean that something's not wrong. It can actually make it worse. So, it may not solve mom and dad getting back together, but it can be big steps forward toward helping your heart and soul heal. And it's so important. And some of you have friends in your life whose parents are going through this. My encouragement is, you don't have to wait for them to come to you. But at the same time, you don't need to try to be somebody to your friend who's going through this. You don't need to try to be somebody that you're not. Don't try to give advice that they didn't ask you for. Here's all it looks like. If my buddy Caleb is going through a hard time and I know it, it looks like me going to Caleb and just going, hey man, I know this and this happened. If you need to talk, I'm here. And you just make yourself available. That's what good friends do at any age. You don't shut down. You open up, because that's for you. That's for your health and soul and heart. Truth number 3. Go ahead and buckle up, because this one might sting. Truth number 3, honor your parents even when it's tough. The reason I say even when it's tough in the context of talking about divorce is you may have lost some respect for your parents because of some of their choices. And listen, I would tell you as an adult, I would tell you that not just this about your parents, but anybody. You do not have to respect their choices. But and let me specifically talk to those of you who are followers of Jesus. I'm not talking about I'm a Christian because ma and pa are Christians. We're not Muslims. We're not Buddhists. We're not Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about those of you who've chosen to follow Jesus. You're a follower of Jesus. For those of you, you're commanded. I mean, really, the Bible commands all children, but I just want to talk to those of you that are following Jesus. You're commanded to honor and obey your parents. It says this in Ephesians chapter 6, children, obey your parents. Why? Because you belong to the Lord. For this is the right thing to do. And then he quotes one of the 10 commandments, honor. He said, obey, honor your father and mother. This is the first of the 10 commandments that ends with a promise. You know the difference between honor and obeying. This is the illustration I've used for years. I tell Silas, Silas doesn't do this, right? But I'll tell Silas, my 10-year-old, hey man, you need to go clean up your room. If he goes, whatever, but goes and cleans it up, did he obey me? Yep. Did he honor me? Nope. And that's probably only going to happen once in the Frizzell house. I'm just saying, right? But there's a difference. So some of you could try to make the argument that, I obey my parents. I obey my step-parents. But if we were able to push and go somewhere and have a Coke and talk person to person, you might have to admit that, but I don't honor them at all. And many of you would say, because I don't respect them. you don't have to be obedient in this to the Lord. You have to honor and to obey. You don't have to respect their choices, but you do have to respect them. Sorry if I didn't make that clear. Now, let me make it a little more difficult because it's just true. I'm talking to those of you that have chosen to follow Jesus. I don't know if you know, but the Bible doesn't just say that you honor and obey your mom and dad, your biological parents. It says that you would honor and submit to all authority in your life, which would include stepmom and stepdad. Now, again, it doesn't mean, and when I say I get it, I don't get it as a child that went through this, but from walking with so many students, from looking at my wife's past, like, I understand in my brain that many of you have this allegiance issue. That if I honor my stepmom, right? And what if I do that in front of my mom? How's my mom feel? And this is the part where I get so mad at adults because they're the one that made the choice. It's not your fault. But here's the deal. You're not a baby anymore in diapers. While it might not have been fair that you're in this position, it is what it is. And now every choice you make is on you now. Because that's all you can control, is your choices. You don't get the judgment someday to God. And you were, because here's the other thing about character and honor and obedience and submission. Like, you make these habits now toward your parents or step-parents, and you're a fool if you think that you'll change and you'll be a better employee or a better husband or a wife or a parent, right? Like, that you'll treat this person like trash because of all this allegiance and anger and unforgiveness and bitterness, but then you won't take those habits. But I'll be like, no, you're a fool if you believe that. And here's the deal. Some of you have had good, bad examples. And what I mean by that is all you got to do is look at some of your adult worlds and you see that they're immature. Guess what? Guess what they were when they were your age? Most likely immature. And they probably disobeyed and dishonored, and they had bad character, and they blamed other people. I've already told you my heart that it is not your fault. But every choice you make as a young adult is yours to own, the good and the bad. And let me say it as clear as I can. To those of you that are followers of Jesus, if you don't or refuse to honor and obey your mom and dad, step-parents, listen to me, you will not honor and obey Jesus. You can argue with me all you want. I've watched it. It's not because I'm older. It's because I have all these examples, all these case studies throughout my decades of working with people your age. It's just how it works. If you can't honor the main authorities in your life, you're not going to honor Jesus because you think mom and dad or stepmom and dad are really hard and difficult to obey. Have you prayed and gotten Jesus to speak to your heart? Have you read his commands that he asks us to do to be obedient to him? It's not easier than mom and dad's. It's harder. So truth 3, you honor your parents even when it's tough. Truth number 4, lean on Jesus. That sounds pretty churchy, right? Let me give you a couple truths, verses. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7, someone who knew about failure, Peter, he writes, give all your worries and cares to God. Give, that word give, in its language originally, it meant to throw, to cast. That word was only used one other time in the New Testament, and it was when somebody took a rug and they threw it over the back of a donkey. They threw it. And it says, throw all of your worries and cares onto God because he cares about what happens to you. And it would be easy to think, and some of you have thought, well, if God cares so much, he wouldn't have allowed these bad things to happen to me. But he did allow it, and he does allow it. And that's really hard and really complex, but the most simple way of thinking about it is that God created and honors our freedom and your parents' freedom and every other person's freedom so much that he allows a lot of bad things. But that doesn't mean that he refuses to be present with you and for you as you go through it. God cares about you. Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, Jesus said, come to me. Jesus said, come to me. All of you who are weary, it means like emotionally tired because of the trauma and hardship that you're going through. Come to me, those of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens. Come to me and I will give you rest for your soul. That's powerful because it's true, because listen to me. Whatever you're going through, whether it's your parents' divorce or any other hardship, there will be times when your friends aren't around. Or they're just not able to help in that way. Or there'll be times when a trusted, godly, wise adult is just not available. Like you're not able to talk to them at the time. But Jesus is always available. And he's strong. And he wants you to lean on him. He says, with all authority, come to me when you are emotionally done. Come to me when you've stuffed things down so deep and have allowed the weight of all of it to get so heavy. Come to me, he says, and I'll give your soul rest. And here's the last truth that I want to give you today. Develop the character now for a great marriage then. But I need a favor here. I need a favor from the youngest in the room to the oldest student. I need a favor because I'm talking about marriage, right? And I kind of hope that most of you are like, bro, I'm not getting married for a long time. I don't need to be thinking about this. Part of me is like, amen, okay? But I want you to stay with me on this because I think I have a good point here. I mean, I wouldn't share it if I didn't think it was a good point. And I'm audacious enough to say if you'll stay with this, it might even be inspiring for right now in your life, whatever age you are. Develop the character now for a great marriage then. Listen, you don't decide one day to have a great marriage when you're older. You know what? I'm gonna have a great marriage, and then you have a great marriage. That's not how successful marriages work, because that's not how any kind of success in anything that matters in life works. Success in marriage is based on the same thing as any other kind of big success in life. It's based on you. Here's what I mean. Listen, this is huge. This is so good, you should pay me for this, but I'm gonna give it to you for free. All right? Because I love you. When I say it's on you, it's on your character. Character is everything. And what I mean by character is that every choice you make, every attitude, every word you say, every action, it's on you. Listen, you can't control 99% of things in the world. The one thing you get to control, that's why I say character is everything. It's the one thing you control. You control your words. You control your act. You can't say, and if any of you do this, right? Then you can join the Frizzell way, because I got this from Ralph Frizzell, my pops, every day. You can't blame others. So I couldn't say, he made me so mad, and so I, right? Whoa. This person made a choice, and then you made a choice. You can't help how you feel, but you help how you act and live and speak. Your character. Okay, you don't want to talk about marriage right now. Cool. What about sports? What about education? What about relationships right now? What about friendships? What about social life? It's all based on you, your character. And if you want it to be successful, it won't get lucky and then become successful. I mean, just read about the stories of people that luck out, and what we mean by successful is they get a lot of attention, a lot of followers, a lot of fame, whatever. Watch their lives. If they didn't have character, then it's not like the fame makes character good. No, that does the opposite. It provides more temptation. If you want success in anything, it starts with making choices now, long before the opportunity that comes in whatever it is you want to be successful at. Part of wisdom is looking honestly at the results. So God's way says, talking about relationships, God's way says develop solid character, godliness. Take responsibility for your life and relationships. You don't blame other people. You don't be lame, right? You don't blame other people. You own your mistakes. I know that in the big leadership of the world, we often don't see people owning their mistakes, but that doesn't mean that's not what adult life and young adult life and godly life is supposed to be based on. It is. That's what God's way says. God's way says in Galatians 6, you reap what you sow. What that means is you get out of something what you put in it. It's all about responsibility. Here's the world's way in relationships. Cross your fingers. Count your lucky stars. Watch all kind of destiny stories. And then find the one. Right? I've been told by people that whether they break up as young dating couples or they get divorced, right? I've been told by people like, oh yeah, it didn't work out because, we just weren't we weren't right for each other. We weren't right for each other. As if there's some magical equation to two people, two souls and human beings who have free will. They're just gonna, if you just get those two together, it'll work. It's like the magic ingredients. That is foolishness on all kinds of top shelf level. That's not how it works. What I've told people often that'll tell me, yeah, we just weren't right for each other. Often, if I'm close to them, I'll say, no. You or both of you probably weren't right for anybody right now because of your character. Because that's what you control. There's no magic in relationships. I get it. It makes cute stories and cute movies and cute songs or whatever, but like, haven't you had enough in your generation of being told cute little fantasy things by the adult world that's way more jacked up than you are? And that's one of the things I love about Jesus, man, is that he just gives you truth. And while it might be hard, because if you're honest, it's really easy just to jump into these silly little games that people play at your age too about dating. Like some of y'all, you act like you're married and you're 15. Right? You know what marriage is? It's hard work and sacrifice and commitment, often that brings other little human beings in the world that someday could sit where you are with heartbreak, even though you don't want to talk about it or you want to act like it's no big deal because mom and pa played a game and then ripped it all apart. So while I don't want to manipulate, so I had to think through this real well, and I mean this. Look at what are the results of the people in your life who are adults that live God's way when it comes to their relationships. And what are the results of those who buy into the world's way of magic and fairy tale and destiny? You develop the character now for the marriage you want then. The majority of you, here's some real talk. The vast majority of people in this room, I'm just talking to students, you will spend far more time on the side of being married and as a parent than you will on the side of being single. That's just how the numbers work, yo. That's just math. You right? And so this idea that man, I'm not gonna worry about that now, I'm gonna have fun. Here's what I wanna say to you, and I mean it from my heart, not trying to manipulate. Those of you especially that come from a divorced home and have suffered through the pain of that because of your parents' possibly lack of good character, that you've suffered through that. For you to right now blow that off, the kind of character that it will take to become the kind of husband or wife someday that will create the kind of family that you want, to act like that's no big deal and you're gonna be a fool now, it's basically saying, I wanna give the best chance possible to put my kids through the same pain that I went through. So I'm going to be a fool now because I want what I want now, and it's not fair, and mom and dad did it to me, and I want to get what I want now. I don't care if someday my kids have to suffer through the same pain that I'm going through or went through when I was little. And so you can tell me that, bro, I'm young, man, I don't want to think about it. And then I would say to you, then you're not living in wisdom. That you don't want to grow up in the good part of growing up. Because all the other stuff, man, look at me. I don't want to grow up either. I don't like most of the adult world. But I want to have a foundation. I want to live in reality. I want to live with joy for as many years possible. I also want to end this sermon because it's time, okay? Because now I'm starting to go off, all right? So let me land the plane here. As a teenager and a young adult, my wife was super scared about getting married. Getting married to me specifically, but getting married in general. Because her one and only example, right, as far as her mom and dad, was divorce. And it was a pretty hard one. And then she came to know Jesus, She worked super hard on her character. She owned her decisions. She worked on not blaming them for things in her life that she had chosen. And years later, after we'd been married for a little bit, someone asked her if she was ever worried about the possibility of us getting divorced. And I want to read to you, I want to quote you what my wife Amy said, because it's good, especially for those of you that come from families of divorce. My wife said this, do you worry about ever getting divorced? She said, no, I don't. And then she said, seriously, I don't, not anymore. And she said the reason is because Dusty and I have both built our lives on the person of Jesus and the truth of Scripture. And then she said, we're not better, and it's not a fairy tale. It's just wisdom and character and really, really hard work. Part of what she means by that is you kind of can't get any more night and day personality-wise between Amy and I. Like if you want two people to just be right, I always want to, I don't know what I want to do. I always want to tease, make fun when people are like, oh my gosh, you and Amy are like perfect together. You guys are amazing because you just, it's like you were made for one another. Like we are as different as you could be ingredient-wise. We shouldn't work if that's what it's based on. That's not what it's based on. Guess what it's based on? Me, her, free choice, free will, character, hard work, love, absolutely. But the stars are just super cool. They have nothing to do with my destiny or yours. And students in this room who know the pain that I'm talking about when it comes to mom and dad and divorce, you are not destined for that same reality or for your kids. But listen to me before I pray. That's on you. Your future in anything, including marriage, that's not on your mom and dad. It's not on the mistakes they made. That's on you. Your choices, your words, that's on you. And that's what Jesus offers. He says, hey, it's hard, man. The road to the life that matters, it's narrow. Why? Because it's hard. But I will walk with you, Jesus said. He said, come to me. If it's heavy, come to me. I'll give you rest. I'll walk with you. That is the promise. This is one of the great promises of the gospel. And it's yours. But your character, your choices, it is on you. Pray with me. Lord Jesus, I thank you for these students. Man, that was a heavy message, and they were here with me. God, I pray for courage in this place where it's needed. There's some that need to open up because they've shut down for a long time. I pray that you'd give them courage. Lord, there are some in this room that have not only blamed their parents and other people for some of the hardships in their lives, they've stopped taking responsibility for the choices they're making. And so I pray for repentance in this place. God, I pray that as we sang earlier, that they would know that your love is massive. It's uncontrollable. To so many, it probably seems reckless how much you love us. May they know that they are adored by you, but that you love us so much that you won't allow us to blame others for our choices, our character, God. I pray for my friends who need to repent. God, I pray for those who were inspired today by your word and your truth, that everything, including marriage, everything that matters in life, for there to be success, it comes down to them, their character, their choices. And that starts now. That doesn't start in some metaphorical someday. So God, I pray for wisdom in this place to begin to make realistic plans toward taking responsibility for our lives. And more than anything, Jesus, I just want to say thank you that we don't go at this journey alone, that you walk with us all the way, that even in darkness, you're there with us. Thank you. I pray this, Jesus, all in your name. Amen.